What's up, my friends? Aloha, and thanks for coming back to the channel. If you're new, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you folks have any questions, comments, or ideas for future videos, drop them in the comments box or shoot me an email. So last week I suffered a pretty major ocular abrasion, my optometrist calls it, in my left eye, my dominant eye, and that's how come I'm wearing these sunglasses indoors. If I take them off and there's any light around, my eyes will just melt out of my face because they're very sensitive to light. And here we are, and that's what's going on today. Anyway, I'm going to be doing a quick and dirty video for you folks on how to break down the IWI TS12 for cleaning. I just recently, well, not recently, but I did pass the 1,000 round mark with this guy. It's been awesome, tons of fun. I'm going to do a future video on my thoughts about it, things I've run into, but long story short, I did have some ejection issues with this guy, probably around the 400 round mark, and that was due to this just being real dirty, and here we are today. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll dive right in. We're going to go ahead and strip this guy down, but first we got to make sure our firearm is clear. So I got my bolt locked to the rear. We'll go ahead and drop it so we can go through the whole series of actions to do this safely. Make sure your firearm is pointed in a safe direction, finger off the trigger, and we are going to go ahead and cycle our bolt, and you'll notice that your bolt doesn't lock back. You got to hit your carrier stop lever down here, drop your lifter, and then your bolt will lock back here. Check inside your chamber, check with your finger, and then we want to check our tubes also. Rotate all your tubes, make sure you can see your followers, and you got nothing in your magazine. This firearm is clear and safe. We'll go ahead and drop this bolt and start with our breakdown. You go ahead and flip this guy up here. There's a button here on the butt pad. You go ahead and push this guy down. If you have any trouble, my nephew is 8. He likes to use the charging handle, like kind of as a punch, but if you're a normal sized human being, you probably shouldn't have any issues. But go ahead and push this button down, hit your butt pad, it'll come off real easy. Recoil pad, rear pad, whatever you want to call it, set it on the side. You notice here inside of your stock, technically this is your stock, it's a real small piece. Your QD mount is also located right here, and it comes out either way. It's a mirror version, doesn't really matter. So just go ahead and pick a side. We'll push it out to me. Go ahead and pull your QD mount out, and like I said, if you look at it, you'll notice that it's mirrored. Doesn't matter which way it goes in. All right, we'll go ahead and pull off our stock. Pretty crazy that this is the stock. Technically it's a stock, but it's one piece. We'll go ahead and set this on the side here. Okay, now with our bolt forward, we're able to pull off our receiver housing just right here. If you have your bolt locked back, I don't know why you do that, but if you did, your bolt carrier group and everything's gonna come off inside of here. You're not gonna be able to get it out to clean it. So make sure that your bolt is forward. But this is your receiver housing. It also contains your trigger group, and we'll pull this out in just a second. I'll show you guys how to do that. But there's that guy. Pull off our bolt carrier group. With our bolt carrier group, we've got our recoil spring and the guide rod. There is a front and back to this, so make sure that this goes back in correctly. This little dingle dongle nipple looking thing points out towards the rear. It won't work the other way, so just make sure that you got this in correctly. Okay, and then that's it for our disassembly of the rear portion of our firearm. We'll go ahead and we'll put this guy down here. And we've got our bolt carrier group and our receiver housing. So there's 2 pins in here that you're gonna need to take out your trigger group. And the tools I'm gonna need for this are the super secret life hack of all the gun guys. Roll a tape or something if you don't have a bench block. This just gives you a platform to work on your stuff and be able to push your pins through, and you're not like pushing it directly into the table. It doesn't work very well. So we got a roller tape, and I've also got my Glock takedown tool that I got from the Glock store. But you just need a 330 seconds punch. This is kind of the standard punch for Glocks, and this is what works for me. This is what I like to use kind of as my do-it-all punchy. All right, we'll push this guy on top our tape. Start with our rear pin. Rest our punch on that rear pin. Put a little bit of pressure and give it a little smacky. It'll come right out. We'll do the same to the front pin and give it a little putty. Pin comes out. We got our pins retained in our ultra fancy block, and then our trigger group will just go ahead and drop out here. Okay, and then inside here you can see our lifter, our hammer, our trigger, and this I didn't have to pull apart. I mean, at some point you're gonna have to pull this apart to clean. I didn't. Like I said, I'm over 1,000 rounds, and everything was real dirty and and gross. This really wasn't too bad. I just hit it with some gun scrubber, some compressed air, oiled it up, and I was good to go. So at some point you're gonna have to pull this guy up. I'm not gonna do it right now, but there will be a future video on how to do that when I need to do this. Okay, so you got a trigger group right here and our receiver housing. There's nothing really in here. There's your bolt release located on the right side. We'll go ahead and throw this guy back inside now. If you notice on top of your trigger housing, there is a, I'm sorry, not your trigger group. There's pins in the back that act as guides for these pins to follow as they go through everything. You got to make sure that these guys are centered, because obviously if they're off to one side like this, it's not going to fit inside your receiver housing. So make sure these guys are centered like this. We'll go ahead and put it in back in first. And I have these glasses on, I can't see anything at all. It's like can't find the hole. I'm 15 years old again. Okay, right on. So we got this schwangy deal going on here. This is what I like to do. It helps me put it together real easy. So go ahead and put that rear pin in. You're gonna have this pivot point. Push your trigger group up. It's not going to be able to seat into the receiver housing because of your bolt catch. So what you need to do is push on this, on the front of your bolt catch here, to get it out of the way, and just set it inside about where it needs to go. Then you'll be able to easily push this pin through. Perfect. Okay, and everything's all ready, good to go. We'll set this guy on the side. Okay, with your bolt carrier group, same thing, real easy. There's two pins on here and they come out the same way. Put a little bit of tension, give it a putty. Same thing with the rear. Right on. Okay, and your pins fall in there. Your bolt comes out. You got your carrier here. Again, these guys at some point are going to need to be taken apart. I didn't need to do that. They were, you know, a little bit dirty, but nothing more than just wiping them off. Okay, we'll go ahead and line up these guys. Just kind of set these guys in. You're gonna need to tap them a little bit. If you got one of these fancy gunsmithing hammers, these work pretty well. Okay, if not, you can use the back end of your punch or something else. This is good to go. Make sure that your pins are flush. Make sure that your bolt locks and unlocks the way it should. BCG's back together. We're good to go. We'll go ahead and put this guy back into one piece. Now, before you throw this back together, I like to put some oil on this because this is metal to metal surface. It's going to be having all kinds of stuff moving around. Just go ahead and drop your BCG on. It'll lock right there. Take your recoil spring. Make sure that it's pointed in the correct direction. Again, that's where the nipple dingle-dongle is facing back, and it goes right inside here like this. Your receiver housing slides on real easy, just like this. And if you have a little bit trouble getting everything to line up, if you come from the back and look down this way, you can kind of line things up just like that. You'll notice that it kind of bounces up and down. That's because of the spring tension on top of your recoil spring. Go ahead and grab your stock. Make sure that this PeaK matches up with, or this hole matches up with this hole. Push this down. Grab your QD mount, stick this inside. Remember, it doesn't matter, either way is fine. This should be held together, and then finally you're gonna take your recoil pad, slide it on just like this, match the button up with the recoil spring. Once you got it locked in, give it a little schmack, you're good to go. Right on. So this is all ready, all reassembled. We'll go ahead and make sure we do a function check. Your bolt should slide back and forth real easy. Your trigger should break. Your bolt should lock back on an empty chamber. Drop it forward, hold down your trigger. Everything's good. Right on. Okay, so we got the rear end broken down, reassembled. Should be clean because you went ahead and did that. Now we're gonna do the front end, and this part is the more important part when it comes to function and reliability and cycling, stuff like that. What you're gonna do, make sure your firearm's pointing in the safe direction. You're gonna take off your choke if you got one. This turns out, this gets old real bad. Make sure you clean this up. This gets a lot of fouling around it. It gets kind of sticky. So remove your choke, set this guy on the side. We're gonna take off our barrel nut or your thread protector, whatever you call it. Unscrew this. This comes off, set this on the side. Now we're gonna take off our heat shield. This, just give it a good little yank and slide it off your rail. Put this on the side. Okay, now we got everything exposed, our gun's naked. Okay, lay it down on its right side, and you're gonna see this shiny retainer clip here. You're gonna need a flathead screwdriver for this guy. Stick them inside, and just take this pin out. Now you'll notice that there's a flat like 90-degree bend, and then there's a kind of a kapakahi or like crooked squiggly part. The flat part goes underneath your gas adjustment valve, and this rear end squiggly part goes toward the rear end of your firearm. So if you're trying to stick this in, you're like, what's going on? It's because you have it on backwards. Set this on the side, don't lose it, it's pretty critical. All right, we'll go ahead and take off our gas adjustment, just back this out. And this is kind of where all the issues begin. This gets real dirty, real bad, super choachy, super gross, all gunked up, and yeah, you got to keep this guy clean. It gets to the point where it's difficult to take off. I used some bore cleaner on this guy, scrubbed it off real good. You want to make sure that this goes back in bone dry though. You don't want to oil or anything like that, because all this gases, all the fouling is going to come in. Any type of moisture that you have on this is going to make it stick, it's going to make it worse. So you can throw oil on top of the threads, that's fine, but anything that goes inside of the housing here, make sure that this is dry. So set this guy on the side. Now you can see your piston kind of peeking out through here. You can take your charging handle, bring it back a little bit, slam it forward, and then it's going to pop out your piston. This is the most critical part here when it comes to that reliability and injection issue. When I pulled this out, I wish I took some pictures, I wish I did a video, but this was bad. It was totally seized up in there. I had a real hard time getting it out. It was ultra dirty. So I soaked this in bore cleaner, scrubbed it off. It's all bare metal. There's no gaskets or anything, so I wasn't worried about anything dissolving in the bore cleaner, but I let this sit and it was bad. So clean this guy off, and I really didn't start to get any issues until, like I said, 400 rounds altogether. So the factory says 250 rounds as a break-in, and then it was probably about 200 rounds or so after that I started to get issues. But just make sure that this stays clean. Put this guy on the side, and then inside your housing here where that guy lives, you want to make sure that this gets clean also, because that gets a lot of fouling, and it was bad. It was gnarly. So hit that with a brush, get it all nice. Again, you want to keep this nice and dry, because any type of moisture is going to make all that fouling and stuff stick inside. Once you're done, once you got these guys all dried up, go ahead and stick this back inside. Okay, you can give it a shake. You'll see it fall down. Okay, and you want to set this all the way down like this. Bring your charging handle forward a little bit so it indexes where it needs to go. Perfect. We'll just leave that right like that. Okay, on top of your adjustment valve, there's a flat spot on the threads. This part, you got to make sure that this on the nut, the flat part on the nut goes down towards your barrel when you're power tight, or when you're finished tightening this down. If it's anywhere else, this clip's not going to fit on, and you just got to figure it out. But be real careful you don't cross thread this, because that's going to make you ultra bummed out. But for me, for my model, it was finger tight and then back a little bit. If you're trying to throw this guy back on and it's not working, you just got to find where that flat spot is and make sure it's facing down towards your barrel. Okay, push your clip back on. Perfect. Make sure that's set nice and tight the right way. And we'll go ahead and throw this guy back together. So your heat shield slides right back on the way it came off. Only one way for it to go. Okay, you're gonna hit a little bit of resistance when you get toward that clip, so just give it a wiggle. It'll go on real easy. Take your barrel nut, and there's a detent in here which is gonna make it kind of make ratcheting sounds. Don't make this too tight. Just tighten it down enough to where it stops making noise. And then go ahead and take your choke. The TS12 does ship with 2 chokes, a modified choke and I think an improved choke. Comes with a tool to remove it, and this does take Beretta and Benelli chokes as well. So you get your choke in there, make it a little bit hand tight. Okay, and that's it. So that's your IWI TS12. I hope you guys got something out of that. How to break this down, how to reassemble it for cleaning. Make sure you just keep this guy real clean. Keep an eye out for the next video on this firearm. I'm going to be talking about my experience with those 1,000 rounds and stuff I've learned about this guy. And yeah, so I'll see you guys next time. Right on. Thank you. Aloha.